Hello and welcome to the online instructional modules for U.S. history. Today, the activity type we're taking a look at is the reflection. As far as social studies skills, it hits just about all of them in a way. It's so adaptable, so versatile. And as far as standards, today we will focus on SS USH5B, weaknesses in the Articles of Confederation, 11B, big business, particularly focusing on John D. Rockefeller, and 15, World War I. With reflections, we start with the objective. What are we trying to accomplish? We want to enhance what students can know, understand, and do. This, of course, is always our objective, and reflections are going to help us do it because the strategy we're working with is to allow students to demonstrate knowledge in various ways. We are familiar with the multiple intelligences, of course, and the reflections play directly into that philosophy by working with students' various talents, skills, intelligences, and preferences such that they can demonstrate knowledge in a variety of ways. A reflection is an open-ended performance task. It's not something where you give a whole lot of specific instructions. It's more like open the door for the student to walk through. What you want the student to do is to demonstrate her knowledge. How she does that is largely up to her. Could be writing a story, could be an illustration, could be some sort of product that she makes, a physical object. As long as it's loaded with content, demonstrating the mastery of the material that you want to see, then it's an acceptable reflection. Now, there might be times when you structure it a little bit and you say, I'm looking for this kind of reflection or that kind of reflection. But for the most part, the idea is to break away from closed-ended, regimented assignments and instead allow them to work on something more open-ended. This doesn't work all the time. We know that they need to work on certain skills, certain types of writing skills in particular. So I would recommend 1 or 2 times a week, but of course you would adjust that to your needs in the classroom. Here's an example. The assignment was for the student to demonstrate knowledge of World War I, and you can see that she's done it. She tells a whole lot of the story of the war. Everything from the alliances on the left-hand side to the time frame on the right-hand side, technology on the right-hand side, some of the key events that drew the United States into the war. You've got the sinking of the Lusitania in the lower right next to the Zimmerman telegram. You have Wilson's plea for peace, his dovish philosophy, which was overridden by the 2 events we just named, the Lusitania sinking and the Zimmerman telegram, which, as the student points out, made the U.S. join the war. And we really run the gamut, everything from the beginning of the war, the triggers to the war, the causes of the war. It tells a whole lot of the story. Now, you may be able to tell that this student isn't a fantastic writer. She was an English language learner, so you see some spelling mistakes and that sort of thing, but she's creative. She worked hard to express the information as best she could and did a tremendous job. You can tell that she knows the material and she has shown it in a creative way. You don't see very many complete sentences. You don't see tremendous depth of explanations. What you do see, though, is a whole lot of content and a whole lot of accuracy. So this is one way to let students engage more in the material. Maybe if I had asked her to write several paragraphs, she wouldn't have done nearly as well. But this was up her alley. This is the way she chose to express her knowledge, suiting her own strengths, and the net result was success. The next example was engaging in Standard 5B, the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation. The student took a DVD case and decided to not make a DVD but simply make a case. And you'll see that she did it in a pretty creative way. So first of all, the title is Keeping Up with the Confederation, and the little pull-out quote on the bottom makes you more thankful for the Constitution, which shows knowledge of both the Articles of Confederation and the Constitution. Also takes you on a bumpy ride throughout. So again, that is a nod to the struggles that the country faced under the AFC. You can see that this actually was a DVD case that was lying around her house. Didn't need it, didn't want it, got creative, so here we are. On the back cover, in 21st century America, there are only 22 states instead of 50. America as a whole is bankrupt. So there is an acknowledgement of the financial problems the country was facing under the AFC. And each state disregards and refuses to help each other. Okay, a lack of unity, we need to know that as well. In the past 200 years, we have had 201 civil wars between various states and a horrible economy, because each state has different currency. Another fact under the AFC, we have no army, and most of our land has been taken. Will someone help the states, or will we be last in the world forever? So this is the back cover, the back jacket of the DVD. Really creative. The student had a lot of fun writing it in a dramatic movie trailer sort of way, and there's actually a pretty fair amount of content loaded into this movie plot. So again, the student can actually create a physical object if a certain amount of content is loaded onto it. This is another kind of reflection. The third kind that a student happened to do was to create a board game that he called John D. Pulley. Instead of Monopoly, John D. Pulley. And a reference here to John D. Rockefeller. You start out in the lower left-hand corner with birth and death, and then as you go clockwise around the board, you come to a whole lot of facts about Rockefeller, how he built his business, the principles on which he operated, the different sides to his life as a businessman, including the philanthropy, the alleged ruthlessness, the vertical integration. It's all here. Some say manipulation of the government, the possible manipulation of prices. In brief phrases scattered throughout the board, this student told the story of Standard Oil and showed the various sides of Rockefeller that were at the center of this remarkable story. At the bottom you see some vocab words such as trusts and mergers. There's a lot here, and this student preferred to get creative, preferred to express the information in bite-sized chunks as opposed to writing long narratives, and because it was his choice, we think that there is a greater level of engagement and buy-in. I didn't tell him to make a game. I didn't tell him to parody the game Monopoly. I didn't tell him to do much of anything besides something very open-ended, which was show your knowledge of this content in a way that makes clear your command of the material. So here we are. He's done it. So how do you grade something like this? Well, a little bit tricky. You may come up with some personalized rubrics, but in general, I find that a balance of 2/3 content, 1/3 creativity works pretty well. Of course, you want to encourage the creativity because that is what allows the students to have more buy-in, but then it's got to be mostly about the content. So roughly a 2-to-1 ratio is what I found works best, and you're rewarding the content knowledge while at the same time encouraging and incentivizing the students' creativity. So that's how reflections work. Again, they are open-ended. Do not try to structure them too much, because the whole point is to allow students to find their own way to express content knowledge. You're going to have higher levels of motivation, higher levels of engagement, higher levels of buy-in, therefore a higher likelihood for the student to learn the material and be able to demonstrate it for you.